If your marketing has felt like it's disappearing into a flood of interchangeable content since ChatGPT showed up, you've correctly spotted the symptom. Here's the disease. Open 10 competitor blog posts in your category. Read the first 3 paragraphs of each and swap the company names and no one would notice the difference. Same stat opener, same born advice, different logo, same nothing. AI didn't create that. It just made it impossible to hide. The founders drowning in that flood right now were already invisible before AI ever touched their content calendar. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you why the ones who aren't struggling weren't protected by a clever prompt. They were protected by something AI still can't fake, no matter how good the model gets. A few weeks ago, I had a call with a founder. He opened almost panicked. "Frank, our competitor is publishing 3 times a week now. Blog, LinkedIn, newsletter, all of it. We can't keep up." I asked him to send me 5 of that competitor's recent posts. I read them in about 90 seconds. And then I asked him one question. What does this company actually believe about the market that nobody else in your category believes? And he didn't have an answer. And it turned out the competitor he was panicking about didn't have the answer as well. They were just producing the same volume of nothing. And AI had just made the nothing cheaper to produce on both sides. I'm Frank Hussman. I built and sold my own B2B SaaS company, and for the last few years, I've worked with over 40 founders on go-to-market. And what that founder described on the call isn't rare. It's close to the default reaction I hear right now, and almost every time, the actual diagnosis is the opposite of what the founder assumes. Here's the assumption almost every founder walks in with. AI lowered the cost of producing content, competitors flooded the market with more of it, and now standing out requires either producing even more content or finding some clever way to game the algorithm that serves it. Faster horse, longer whip. That assumption is wrong, and you can prove it in about 10 minutes with your own inbox. Search your competitors' recent LinkedIn posts and blog articles. Almost none of them say anything a reasonable person could disagree with. Customer experience matters more than ever. AI is transforming how B2B buyers research vendors. The companies that win will be the ones who put the customer first. Nobody in your market woke up and picked a side against any of those statements. Because there's no side to pick. They're not claims, they're just weather reports. Before AI, that kind of content still took real time and real money to produce. The junior marketer had to write it, someone had to design it, it had to move through approval. The investment behind it created an illusion of substance, even when there wasn't any. It looked like effort, and effort used to be a decent proxy for credibility because most people couldn't fake that much effort convincingly. But AI removed the cost of faking the effort. It didn't remove the requirement for substance, it just stopped disguising its absence. Now the market's total supply of opinion-free, interchangeable content went from a trickle to a flood overnight, and every buyer scrolling through that flood has gotten faster, not slower at recognizing when there's nobody actually behind the words. What actually changed isn't the ceiling for good marketing, it's the floor for bad marketing, and the floor just fell out from under everyone who was standing on it. So the real question was never, how do we keep up with the volume? It's, do we actually have something to say that a competitor couldn't publish under their own logo tomorrow morning? If the honest answer is no, more volume just buries you faster, at your own expense, in a race you're already going to lose. There's a framework I use with clients to explain what actually separates the founders getting buried from the ones who aren't. And once you see it, you'll start noticing it in every feed you scroll. Opinion density is the strength of a founder's point of view multiplied by how consistently they repeat it. Strength is whether the claim could be wrong. We help SaaS companies grow as zero strength. Nobody could ever prove they're false because it's not a position, it's a category description. And most founders hire a head of marketing before they've defined an ICP, and that hire fails almost every time, not because the person is bad, but because there's nothing for them to execute against, has strength. Someone in your market could read that and think you're wrong. But that's the whole point. A claim nobody could dispute can't be remembered either, because the brain has nothing to file it under. Repetition is the second half, and it's the part AI genuinely broke for founders who don't have real conviction. Repeating a claim you don't actually hold, in different words across dozens of posts, is exactly the kind of service level pattern matching a language model is good at faking. For 1 or 2 posts. It falls apart by post 5. A model can restate a sentence. It can't extend an actual belief into a new situation no one's asked about yet, and that's the tell. Watch your competitor's feed for 3 weeks. If every post reads like a slightly different phrasing of the same idea applied by someone who's actually lived it, that's a founder repeating conviction. If every post covers a different topic with the same bland confidence and none of them connect to each other, that's a founder or a tool producing volume with nothing underneath it. I didn't just notice this anecdotally. I analyzed over 3,000 LinkedIn posts from more than 100 B2B SaaS founders, comparing 5 founders with genuinely large engaged audiences. People like Piep Laya and Alina Vandenbergen, against the average founder in the group. Only 8.1% of the average founder's posts contained an actual point of view, a claim about the market, the buyer, or the category that someone could push back on. For the 5 founders with real traction, that number was 42.4%, 5 times higher, and that gap existed before AI content tools were part of anyone's workflow. AI didn't create that gap. It just gave the 91.9% a faster way to keep producing the kind of content that was never going to close it. Strength alone doesn't save you either. A founder can hold a real sharp belief about the market and still lose, if that belief only ever surfaces once in one post 6 months ago. Opinion density needs both halves. A strong claim made once is a good tweet. The same claim, defended and extended across a dozen situations over a year, is a thing a buyer starts to associate with your name before they have ever spoken to you. I've watched this play out inside client accounts directly, not just in a dataset. A founder I work with in the compliance software space could have easily published the same generic stay audit ready content every other vendor in that category puts out. Instead, the content built around him made one specific repeatable claim, that compliance failures almost never happened because the rules were unclear. They happened because the person responsible for tracking them left the company 8 months ago and nobody backfiled the process. The accounts that kept coming back to that ID started surfacing in our intent signal data weeks before any of them filled out a form, because the content had already done the convincing before sales ever picked up the phone. And I've seen the inverse just as often. A founder whose team ramped up publishing once AI tools made it trivial, 3 or 4 pieces a week, and pipeline didn't move at all. Not because the content was badly written, theoretically it was fine. It just didn't say anything their buyer couldn't already predict before opening it. More of that doesn't compound. It just adds noise on top of noise, and now the noise arrives faster than it used to. And here's what is actually costing founders if they're doing it the wrong way. Buyers now spend upwards of 9 months researching a purchase before a salesperson ever gets involved, quietly building a shortlist almost entirely on their own. And that research phase used to require some effort from the buyer, digging through generic content to find anything worth trusting. AI just made the generic content infinite and free, which means buyers have gotten ruthless about filtering it early in the process than they used to, often within the first paragraph. If your content reads like everyone else's content, you're not losing that buyer to a competitor with a better pitch. You're not entering their shortlist at all, because there was nothing in what you published for them to remember you by, and increasingly, nothing distinguishing you from 100 other vendors publishing the same volume of the same nothing. It's a conviction problem, not a volume problem, and more publishing without more conviction just accelerates how fast you disappear. The founders who are fine right now, genuinely fine, aren't the ones who found a better AI workflow. They're the ones whose actual belief about their market was strong enough and specific enough that AI tools can help them say it faster, in more formats, to more channels, without changing what's actually being said. The tool got better. The requirement for something worth saying through the tool didn't move an inch. So if you're looking at your own content output right now and wondering whether you need to publish more to compete with what AI made possible, that's the wrong question. The right one is whether the last 10 you published contained a single claim a smart competitor could actually disagree with. AI didn't kill B2B marketing. It just made it obvious, faster than ever before, who never had anything to say in the first place. The founders who survived this aren't the ones producing the most. They're the only ones in their category saying something real. If this changed how you think about your own content, please subscribe. I'll keep unpacking how B2B SaaS founders build GTM that actually compounds. And if you want a second opinion on your own GTM, there's a short audit in the description. It takes about 2 minutes, no call required. I'm Frank Husman, and I'll see you in the next video.